Alrighty, everybody. Warcraft Rumblings, Blizzcon panel 2023. We've been reacting to a lot of shit. I just ripped my fucking finger. I've been reacting to a lot of BlizzCon content, and we're nowhere near done, but we're gonna continue reacting to it a little bit by little bit every single stream. We've got Warcraft Rumble, and I believe this is the only panel for Warcraft Rumble, but we'll find out. And we started Warcraft Rumble yesterday. I'm enjoying it. Just kind of did the basics in Elwyn Forest. I'm going to jump back in after this in the stream and do the basics again, just to kind of recap, so I can kind of get a little bit more of an idea on what I did the first day, and then continue on with some progression. So let's go ahead and get into the panel and see what is in store. I've got a lot of freebies by playing Warcraft Rumble this week as well, but I'll go into deep details on episode 2 of Warcraft Rumble, because I've logged in today already and collected them, but give you guys a little bit of updates, so stay tuned. Let's go!
Okay, BlizzCon. Our next presentation's ready to deploy. Here's Warcraft Rumblings.
Let's move my keyboard and move my tea. We got tea, team. Very boiling hot. But I do have a honey stick in my tea. Oh shit.
Alright. Hello.
The honey's gone.
Welcome to Warcraft Rumblings. Also, welcome again to BlizzCon 2023. I'm Tom Chilton.
Honey
I'm
stick's
the
dead.
game director of Warcraft Rumble. Today we're going to do a deep dive into what Warcraft Rumble is, some of its history, and of course, what's coming next. To do that, I'll be accompanied by two of our key team members, Jackie Bacall-Head, our production director, and Jeremy Collins, our art director. But before we get started, since there might be some folks in the audience that are new to Rumble, pretty easy to be new to a game that just came out, we'd like to kick the presentation off with a montage of videos that just kind of quickly showcases a little bit about what this game is about, some of its history, some of the gameplay feels. So with that,
I've seen this guy before. I don't know where. I can already tell they're making it seem a lot more epic than it actually is. It's a fun game, don't get me wrong, but it is a pure mobile game so far. But again, I've only really dipped in, so.
It's a action strategy game that takes place in the basement of the Hearthstone Tavern. Originally constructed by gnomes, the machine prints miniature toy versions of the iconic heroes of Warcraft in a specialized mold chamber deep in the guts of the machine.
A massive, overarching experience.
This is one of the best teas I've ever made.
Zones to it and more experiences for players to enjoy.
The player's base is down at the very bottom here, and you're going to make your way up and try to take out the boss at the top. We've got ourselves a meeting stone on the left and a tower on the right, and then we have these gold nodes, and the gold nodes can be harvested by mining units in order to collect gold, which is sort of your core resource for deploying units.
YOLO.
It's do or die here, folks. It's do or die. Yeah, the sappers. Woo. Joyful chaos, folks. That's joyful chaos right there. Enjoy the joy.
Enjoy the chaos. The chaos, it never ends.
Hello, BlizzCon. My name is Jackie Bacall-Head, and I'm the production director of Warcraft Rumble.
I'm a bit
Here
upset
today.
with how little people are actually playing this game so far. Like, you guys can see, it doesn't matter. Rumble. 8.8k followers, 961 viewers. It's so little. It bothers me, because I actually hope this game
To
succeeds.
talk about
And I'm gonna
what
try
Warcraft Rumble
to
is.
help that happen.
So, as you can see from the video we just watched, Warcraft Rumble is all the things. We wanted to make a game that had a lot of different things for many different types of players. So I'm here today to talk about just a few of the things that make up Warcraft Rumble. So first off, we are a tower defense and offense game. Not only do you have to protect and worry about your base, mine for resources, source your army,
It's a
but
solo
you can also
MOBA.
attack your opponents or boss to claim their base.
Solo
You get to
MOBA
collect
mobile
a whole
game.
bunch of mini versions of Warcraft heroes you love. We've got a large campaign, and once you get high enough level, we have a challenging heroic campaign mode. We also have PvP for those who love competing against others. And for those who are most solo players, like myself, you can hit up a dungeon or play Arclight Surge. You can sync up with friends in a group chat and join a guild.
It's not out yet.
And then once you're in a guild, you can work together with your guildmates to win the guild war chest each season. So these are just a few of the areas that I'll touch on in more depth, but otherwise, please feel free to head over to our Rumble area and check out the game yourself. One of the fun things you get to do is build strategic armies. Armies in our game are made up of troops, spells, and leaders. We'll be launching with over 65 minis in 5 different families with multiple leaders in each. The families are Alliance, Horde, Beast, Undead, and Blackrock. So you have plenty of opportunity to test out and try different playstyles. There's lots of choice in deciding which minis you want to collect. You might want to go wide, collect a whole slew of different minis, or go deep and level up a smaller number of minis, focusing in on increasing their power. When strategizing your deck or your army, which is based off the rock, paper, scissors mechanic, you'll be able to pick from melee, ranged, flying, or squad minis. For example, when picking which mini to play on the field, flyers take down a melee type, and ranged minis will take down flyers.
I learned all this
And on
yesterday.
top of collecting minis,
Pretty
you can
easy.
also
It's
collect
kinda cool,
talents
though.
for them, which adds additional abilities. So for example, one of my favorite leaders is Undead Baron Rivendare, which you might remember from Stratham in Lordaeron, who will summon skeletons at your base or towers you control. I tend to go with Skeletal Frenzy for Baron's talent, which gives Bloodlust to nearby skeletons, increasing their movement and attack.
I haven't gotten to this yet.
I find this gives me an advantage as I personally love being fast in the game and I aim to control as many areas of the map as possible. So, now you have an army built up, where are you gonna go? In Rumble, you're gonna go on a journey through Azeroth, moving through all the old zones you know and love, including Elwynn Forest, the Barrens, Westfall, Stranglethorn Vale, Darkshore, and many more. There are over 70 levels at launch, with 5 levels divided into zones.
I'm looking forward to the
Final
game a
level
little
of
bit
each
more.
zone
I've
is a
enjoyed it
harder
so
mission,
far.
and requiring a higher level army to defeat. Each level and boss have a unique mechanic, so will require a different strategy, a different army to be successful. In Stranglethorn Vale, for instance, we have King Mookla's map. It kind of feels like a sports ball field where Mookla tosses bananas onto the field, and when any minis walk across them, they level up. So it's a fun way to add more strategy, deciding if you want to boost up some of your weaker units or go for your stronger ones. And then once you've beaten the campaign, you will reach Onyxia's lair. Onyxia is the hardest challenge and final boss in the game. Few have beaten her. Please let me know when you do, because I sure haven't. And now, to talk some game modes.
Let's pause it there. She has... I wish I saw this before I played. She's explained this really good. She's done a really good job on explaining this. It would have been so much easier instead of me just going in and figuring things out. But I figured it all out. And the reason why I know she's explained it so well is because I have figured it out on how to play the game and stuff with the basics. So she's done a good job. I like that.
Arclight Surge is a super fun solo feature where you get to replay levels you've completed, but with an electric twist. Every few days, a rotating selection of levels that you have completed will be lit up with Arclight energy. In one of the twists, you'll be given an army of minis to play with. You will have to use specific families with minis you may not own or have tried out in the past, so you get to try out different playstyles. It's kind of like a try before you buy. I've personally collected new minis based solely on the fact I've tried them out on a Surge map. In another Surge mode, you will get a modifier on the maps of a particular zone. So for example, where kobolds gain 10 levels for every gold they mine. It's a guaranteed mini that will not only help you source your army, but will fight back with some force too. And on top of the campaign mode that I've mentioned before, we have an even harder version with the heroic campaign. So once you get to 50 sigils, you unlock the heroic campaign, which I find to be extremely difficult. It is essentially the normal campaign, but with a higher level requirement and a harder twist on the map. So for example, Elwynn Forest is our starting zone. You only need a level 1 army. But once you unlock Heroic Campaign, you're going to need a level 11 army in order to complete them, and then also you'll get to encounter different twists. The Dreadnought, for example, if you have played it, has 2 cannon reticles roaming the map instead of just one, which you would find on the normal campaign. These levels are another opportunity to get more XP to boost your armies, as you get extra rewards for winning with each family, and another bonus for completing the entire zone. And a side note for a bit of insider information, as the team was developing this feature, we started calling it the mean mode. And because we love all things mini, our take on dungeons are mini versions of WoW Dungeons. These are a series of 3 maps with 3 bosses. Each week we rotate the family required to enter the dungeon. So essentially you'll pick a leader from from the family that's selected for that week that you can use to enter into the dungeon. And then before jumping into each level, you will get to pick a relic, which is just like a talent, but it could apply to either an individual unit, or it could be a buff to part of your army or your entire army. You will be able to stack 3 relics, 1 for each of the 3 levels of a dungeon. So for example, before you enter into the first level of the dungeon, you'll get a selection of 3 different relics. You get to pick one, jump into the dungeon. Once you complete the boss, you'll be brought up back to the screen, presented with another 3 relics, pick one, jump in, and then when you're playing the second level, you'll be able to use both relics from level 1 and from level 2. And then one important note, you only have 2 lives or Ankhs of Resurrection to get through the 3 levels of the dungeon, or else you'll have to start over from the beginning, which totally sucks. You can repeat dungeons and try out different relics and different leaders within the family for that week, collecting more rewards. But only the final boss win gets an army slot upgrade, which bumps up levels of special mini types that you can apply to your leader's army. Now, let's jump into some features that have human interaction. Are you super competitive? Maybe you do awesome defeating campaign missions? How about against players across the world? Did you happen to catch our Rumble Mania event today where we showcase PvP? In our PvP mode, we match you up 1v1 according to your rank. And as you get better and better, climb the ladder, you will play against harder and harder opponents. Our seasons are 6 weeks long, each with a different tower, map, and map modifier. It keeps the game fresh by changing up the challenge, just like many other features in our game. Everything rotates, modifies, and adds new twists. And then on the social side of things, we have guilds. You can group up with new people, group up with friends of old, chat with them, or work together to obtain your guild's war chest. You can have up to 15 people per guild, which has been a challenge for the team as we've been fighting to see who can be part of the best team guild. And taking a moment to dig into guilds, there's a feature called War Chest, which resets every season. This is a group effort for the guild to play Arclight Surge missions and PvP matches to collect points to turn in for rewards. You get to play with, so if you use different family leaders, you will collect points for each of those families, and together that will combine for an even bigger reward. You can keep track of who is helping to gather points in the War Chest screen. Push your friends to go, 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 do their fair share of the work so everyone can reap the rewards.
I don't think it should be a guild-only mechanic for war chests, because it's a mobile game, and mobile games are known for being solo, primarily. Take Summoner's War, for example. You can take advantage of everything without being in a guild, except guild content, of course. But you still, the rewards are, you can still earn them, or pretty much get them in solo, so...
And with that, this is the end of my quick summary of Warcraft Rumble.
Please.
We have tons of features for you to try out, learn, and master,
don't make guilds
and
OP.
many more ideas yet to come.
Is what I'm saying.
The team and myself are super proud of the game we get to share with you all, and hope you enjoy it as much as we do. Next up, I'd like to hand it over to Jeremy, our art director, who's going to go over the history of the game and a little bit behind the scenes.
She presented that good. I've enjoyed the game so far, even though I've only played it once, but I've enjoyed it. Tie-dye man.
Blizzcon, what's going on? Hey everybody. Thanks, Jackie. What's up, everybody? I'm here to chat a little bit about discovering the art style and gameplay of Warcraft Rumble, and a little bit about the team who kind of put it all together. Warcraft Rumble, like many game projects, began with an idea. What if we could make a game that miniaturized Azeroth into an experience that celebrated the epic majesty of the Warcraft universe and the fun moment-to-moment gameplay of modern mobile games? Making RTSs has always kind of been part of Blizzard's DNA, stretching all the way back 1994. Some of you may have not even been born back then. Orcs and humans. The strategy genre has been evolving ever since then, and we wanted to evolve with it. Tabletop war games were a very big early influence, as were physical board games, like those childhood games that you had that had components of dimensionality to them, where, you know, instead of it just being a little wooden cylinder, you're actually picking up the object molded out of plastic or something like that. Games that had pieces you could pick up and that weren't flat cardboard representations of a thing, but the thing itself. As you can see on the side screens here, we started with digital pencil and paper, often scrawling out those ideas in notebooks or on whiteboards at the studio. In those early days, the goal was really just to lay out all the ideas on the table and then start sifting through those choices that would support Rumble's core gameplay loop. But before we get too deep into making the game, most importantly, I wanted to introduce you to the talented artisans that have helped create Rumble, and let's take a short trip down memory lane with me. So here's the team. The original, some of them in the audience today. The original group of developers that started Rumble were originally comprised of Blizzard PC developers from various games at the company. Some of us came from World of Warcraft, others came from StarCraft, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm. But what we quickly realized as we began making the game is that we needed to bring in mobile developers from outside Blizzard to kind of round out our knowledge.
Is this what's halted Heroes of the Storm and StarCraft slightly?
These developers educated us in so many ways on what mobile development looked like from the inside out, and it was incredibly helpful to the team to have those developers join us. You don't know what you don't know until you get the experience brought in to teach you about it. So we all shared that one thing in common, though. The team was all united by our love and passion for mobile games. I think we all remember that one magical summer where we were all chasing around cute little magical creatures all over our local neighborhoods. Our team truly believes that mobile games can create incredible and compelling gaming experiences, and that has fueled us as we launch Rumble towards the rest of the world. And lastly, and probably most importantly, we're all bound together by our love of Warcraft. Some of the earliest developers, including myself and our game director Tom, who you just saw a little while ago, had already contributed to the world of Warcraft in significant ways already, and all of us were already huge fans of Warcraft going into this experience. As a little kind of fun fact, my parents bought me the Warcraft 2 battle chest for getting good grades in school. My dad was like a die-hard Mac guy, and so we didn't have a PC growing up, which basically equated to me not being able to play PC games at all. But thankfully, in those days, Blizzard ported everything to Mac, and so I was basically able to kind of grow up loving the game worlds of Azeroth, loving Warcraft, copying the drawings out of the manuals, and it kind of began my love of art. Being able to kind of contribute back to Warcraft, the Warcraft universe in general, has been a really incredible experience. And while we've grown as a team throughout the years, it still feels very much like those early days in many ways, when we were all just a couple of us sitting in a little room in the back of Blizzard Entertainment working on a game prototype. For our early prototypes of the game, we used Warcraft 3 and WoW models and animations and VFX as substitutes for final art. We do this to save time while we're developing the art style, including characters and environments, but we need to stand things up really, really quickly, so we use assets that we have to kind of find the fun inside of the game.
That's pretty much how the game works.
Early art
What we're seeing now.
had the entire play surface carved out of all wood or molded from a single piece of plastic. This became a little bit problematic because it was a bit too much of a limited palette to deal with and how large we wanted to make our campaign. We knew we wanted a giant PvE campaign, and if everything was made out of wood or everything was made out of molded plastic, it loses some of its specialness. And so in this kind of first video here, we experimented with a 45-degree camera instead of the vertical camera that we ended up landing on for the game. You can see here in the art style how a lot of the old look of the game leveraged the more kind of hand-painted World of Warcraft look before we adopted as a team what's called a PBR, or a physically based rendering pipeline. And that's just a fancy way of basically saying that materials have their actual real-world physical properties kind of added to them: shininess, metalness, etc. Also, the 45-degree camera kind of limits how much gameplay can be on the screen at any one given time. The top left and bottom right corners are filled up with set dressing, and we really wanted to make sure the gameplay was front and center with the
They did a good job.
In this second example, you can see the old style of our orc and some of our older inventory screen iteration that felt a little bit more like boxed toys on a shelf. The older character design style was a level of detail higher than what we ended up landing on, but we learned a lot about the style and tone of the game from these early tests. And lastly, we experimented with kind of like a medieval style 3D world map, which, if you're a child of the 90s like I was, may have been inspired by a certain game from your childhood where you had to race against a timer to put little different shaped blocks into their corresponding slots, and if you didn't do it in the timer, they would spray back at your face. We took a little bit of inspiration from that for this map. This was the all-wood exploration of the game board, which was a test of really just how many orcs we could populate on the screen at any one given time, and the answer is a lot. We were able to get a lot of orcs on the screen. This was, you know, interesting for us to see for the first time our 3D units kind of marching around a map. And this was our first iteration of mini deploys, which we knew we wanted something fun that really kind of lended to the physical nature of toys. That's an art pillar of ours on the Warcraft Rumble team, but why not slamming them onto the game board? Wasn't that really fun? So these were kind of the first initial tests of that, basically. We actually do a lot of employing what are called smear frames in the animation of Warcraft Rumble. And that's because there's no motion blur in the game. We simulate motion blur by stretching out the characters so that when in fast movements, your eye kind of connects the different frames together and it becomes one smooth animation without the need for motion blur inside the scene. Smearing the geometry of our minis basically allows us to kind of
You never know this stuff as like someone like me that just doesn't know what goes into it, and it's kind of cool.
The artist did on the project was what we do best at Blizzard, which, well, we made a bunch of orcs. Orcs were the palette by which we painted. We played with silhouettes and character proportions. We knew we wanted to have a top-down game, and that the detail would mainly be focused in the top third of the characters, because when you're, playing in the gameplay, you're looking down on top of them most of the time. But we needed to balance that level of detail out quite a bit. These early animation tests that were done were kind of like tests to carve out who the personalities of the different characters were. We always knew we wanted to be very stylized because of the platform we're heading to. Mobile games, you could be outside, you could be inside. We wanted to make sure there was a really clear read on the characters very, very quickly. And we learned what we didn't like. Certain proportions felt truer to Warcraft orcs, and we didn't want to change that. I mean, we could not get rid of the massive shoulder pads. This is like endemic to the Warcraft art style. The game really needed to feel authentically Warcraft, but viewed through the lens of a mobile phone screen. Kind of familiar, but new. Since we knew we were going to be a top-down camera game, we put a lot of effort into the design of the top third of those characters. And that's where kind of color blocking comes in. We kept the color blocking for our characters. This is basically just like the overall local color of the character. Very simple, to 2 or 3 colors for quick and easy gameplay reads from our top-down camera angle. One of the main pillars of the look and feel of Warcraft Rumble is tactility. So much of the Warcraft art style is about that kind of handcrafted imperfection. We wanted to make a game that very much felt like a living piece of Azeroth, where the materials of the game felt real in their representation, but also captured the kind of over-the-top personalities of some of Azeroth's famous and infamous characters. Here's our earliest iteration of the orcs. These are some of those early animation tests I was talking about. You can see there's a lot of different proportion attempts, a lot of different styles being represented here. this was us trying to find out what proportions work best for us. My background is in character animation. I came to Blizzard after working for about a decade on feature animated films in Los Angeles. And so these early art style examples began with motion for me, because that's what I know really well. But the other early artists on the project were encouraged to explore in whatever medium they felt most comfortable with. And as you can see, we got some pretty varied results. So let's talk a little bit about environment art. So for the environment team, Trees and Elwyn were their orc. We needed to figure out what the style of the environments were going to look like, and we needed to do lots of visual exploration around shapes with strong, recognizable silhouettes, but with an additional kind of toy touch. A lot of our environmental assets are built like toys, with seams where the branches of the trees meet with trunks. We wanted to make it feel like not only were the characters toys, but the environment that they lived in were also toy play sets. And we wanted to impart some of that manufacturing process of toys into the actual final models in our game. And so that's really cool for us. Everything in Azeroth has character, and we wanted to make sure it wasn't just the characters that had character, but the environments themselves were a character in their own. The same thing is true for the UI of our game as well. Getting our mini representation down for both environments and characters was really essential to kind of understanding the art style of what we were creating. And this is typically what's called a vertical slice, which is really just kind of a fancy term for a small amount of polished gameplay that represents the broader visual look and core gameplay loop of a new game. It's basically like a little piece, a little corner of a game where we can see, okay, I get it, I see what the final product could look like. That's why you do a vertical slice. So I want to talk a little bit about the box, the actual Rumble arcade machine. We actually designed the Rumble arcade machine from the inside out. This was a very early collaboration with the story and franchise team, who make the incredible cinematics you've seen here today. And they did some visual development inside the Warcraft Rumble arcade machine. These renders right here are by an artist named Tony Bratinchevik, who we affectionately called Tony Renders on the team. I don't know if he knows that, but now he does. Thank you, Tony. Beautiful what-if concepts of the playfield and the exterior of the Rumble game machine, with lots of nods to the visual language of the Hearthstone Tavern, which is...
We get to see it in World of Warcraft now in major cities because of the quest signs that they brought out.
Steampunky-looking gnomish stuff that populates all sorts of fun areas of Azeroth. In these examples, we tried kind of more porcelain-style materials, but at the end of the day, porcelain just wasn't the right material. It felt a little too fragile. Like the minis, we knew we wanted them like scrapping them up on the field, and we knew we wanted this handcrafted quality to them, and they needed to take a little bit of a beating, and porcelain didn't really feel like the right choice for that necessarily. This is a bit of a lower angle where you can kind of see that even in the early days, it still felt very Warcraft, with the distressed metal and the wood, but this version of the game was maybe a level of detail too great for what we were going for, or maybe too great for the medium that we were also on as well. Smaller screens require less detail. We had to balance the visual style for the mobile platform. Mobile game screens vary widely in size and aspect ratio, and it was very important to us to make sure that the art looked beautiful, and most importantly, communicate gameplay on those smaller screens. Big from the beginning. Here's some screenshots from the all-plastic era of Warcraft Rumble. This felt a little bit too much like those board games that I mentioned earlier that were molded or vacuum formed from that single piece of plastic. It didn't feel quite right. We found that by creating different types of plastic, some more matte, some more shiny, some rougher, some smoother, that was our way of creating.
I was gonna say, I think they took a balance of everything
for the collectible minis inside
for the final product.
Kind of vary up the overall materials in general.
Because you can see little things from each variation.
Warcraft games are kind of lovingly handcrafted. We took that a step further and added some surface detail to our characters, which we affectionately called chipping. So in our game's fiction, the Rumble game machine basically prints out these kind of figures down in the creation chamber, which is like the mold at the bottom of the machine. And that's where all the minis are created, and they're pushed up to the kind of playfield. But we asked ourselves, like, who made the positives of these molds? You know, to make a mold negative, you need a positive first. We thought kind of about, you know, what tools that they might have used in Azeroth. And if gnomes made the positive sculptures that all these minis came from, Maybe they used wood to make those positives. And maybe while they were making those positives out of wood, the chisels would have left little surface imperfections all over the place, leading to that more kind of handcrafted art style. But chipping basically allowed us to have details that went away when you're looking at the character from the top-down gameplay view, but when they're right in your face when you're looking at them celebrate in the UI of our game. And so we had to kind of balance that a little bit so that there was some interest and appeal for the characters when you're seeing them celebrate, but that they were also very instantly recognizable when they're out on the playfield. An extra level of handcrafted detail that is just very endemic to the Warcraft universe. And, well, here's where we are today. We are a bunch of very passionate developers, very eager to support this game with new content and features on a regular cadence. And while we've had a lot of fun over the years, Warcraft has always been our North Star. We wanted to make a game that fit in your pocket, where you could relive some of those classic moments from Warcraft's past in miniature form. We wanted a game that felt authentically Warcraft. A game where we could play in this massive sandbox that's been created for us. We hope you have as much fun playing it as we did making it. Next up, our game director, Tom, is going to tell you a little bit about what's coming up for the future of Warcraft Rumble. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks again. All right, so that brings us to what's next. And it should come as no surprise that we have a ton of new content, new features that we're currently either experimenting with or in production on. We thought it would be fun to give a preview of what the current roadmap looks like. However, it's worth keeping in mind that, you know, as all of you play the game and you develop opinions about what should come next, seems like that happens with some of you, we expect that things in the roadmap will change to account for your feedback. Believe it or not, I still hear about the dance studio in World of Warcraft that we talked about back around Blizzcon 2007 or so. But maybe it'll come next year, right? Who knows? So, you know, if we're all together again next time and something here hasn't happened, just remember this fantastic disclaimer. But with that said, let's take a look at what the current plan is. All right, so this is a high-level view of some of the big beats that we're working on. For starters, we're going to cover new seasonal content. For those of you that are starting the game today or yesterday perhaps, Season 1 just got underway. But given that our seasons are 6 weeks in duration, you can expect updates for every coming season. In addition, we have a variety of new features planned, and those will help round out the game, and we'll cover those in just a bit. We have new map content in the form of a new dungeon and a new zone that are.
I feel they should do more than 6 weeks.
Their way into the game in the coming months. And of course, we've got a few updates to the PvP system coming soon as we continue to refine, balance, and spice things up on that side of the game. All right, so with a high-level look covered, let's talk about seasons. Now, that of course starts with Sylvanas. As I noted a few moments ago, Sylvanas has been introduced as a new undead leader for Season 1. Sylvanas features a rapid-fire single-target attack that deals physical damage. Of course, you know, given that Sylvanas is the Banshee Queen, it's only properly natural, or unnatural, I guess, that once she dies, she's not really dead. She turns into a Banshee and then attempts to possess the nearest enemy unit. Now, as with every mini in the game, she also has 3 talents available to her for you to decide exactly what flavor of gameplay you prefer. So you could go with the Black Arrow talent. That turns her single target attack into an elemental piercing shot that can also carry through behind enemies behind the primary target, doing a bunch of additional area damage. Or you can choose Banshee's Wail, which causes Sylvanas to stun all nearby enemies once she dies, making it a lot more difficult for all of those characters that just killed her to then kill the Banshee before the Banshee can actually possess an enemy. And then last but not least, you could go with Forsaken Fury, which grants Fury to nearby undead and horde units. And that really kind of plays into, you know, of course, Sylvanas having been both leader of the Forsaken and eventually becoming leader of the Horde. Now, as of now, she's exclusively available this season, both through the PvP ladder, through the war chest, and a bundle. And of course, you know, as new minis that come into the game are featured as part of the season, as the next season rolls around, they become available in the grid once that season has ended.
I was just say, how am I going to get it?
For now, for those of you that want her and really kind of want to earn your way to Sylvanas, the PvP ladder and the war chest with your guild are the way to go.
The two things I'm not doing. Nice.
Season 2. Now, as you can see, with each season for the foreseeable future, we plan to add a new mini to the game. In Season 1, it was a leader, and in Season 2, it's a troop that can be added to any army. And so, the Chimera, it's a highly territorial beast from the forests of Kalimdor. The Chimera has a long history of felling foes in battle. I mean, it may not have been as deadly as a Defias pillager, hiding out in a Westfall farmhouse, but, don't sleep on the Chimera. So it's 2 heads, spew death from above. One of them with, area of effect poison attack, and the other one has a chain lightning area attack. Now, both of these attacks are elemental in nature, but she can be talented in some interesting ways that emphasize just different aspects of the Chimera. So, for example, you could select Corrosive Breath, and that talent will deal significantly more damage to towers, buildings, and armored enemies because it turns into a siege attack. Or you could go with Jolt, which adds a stun to the lightning part of the attack, interrupting enemy attacks and movement so that the Chimera's poison has a chance to build up to a more devastating degree. Or you can just keep it simple and go with the Dynamic Duo talent, and that adds fury to the Chimera's attacks, which makes the Chimera attack faster and faster and faster as it continues to attack. Either way, the Chimera adds significantly to the options that are available to beast armies because it adds a solo, which is non-squad flyer option to the beast family, which is something that the beasts don't have right now. Right now, all their flying units are squads, and so if there's area effect anti-air, then it really kind of handles anything that's beast flying, but not once the Chimera comes out. All right, so next up, we have a sneak peek into some of the minis that are coming for Season 3 and beyond. On the screen to your left, hailing from the depths of Blackrock Mountain, we've got Emperor Thorson, and he really kind of rounds out the Blackrock family as its
got
third
Ragnaros, holy!
We are working on a few different options for Emperor Thorson's abilities as we continue to iterate on him during our kind of gameplay testing. But the current front runner is that he'll be an armored mini with a fiery weapon and a lava spike attack. The fiery weapon is going to be his melee attack, and the lava spike is actually a ranged area damage attack. And then as for Season 4, we expect the Fairy Dragon at the center concept to be the new seasonal mini. One of the things that we feel like the overall mini landscape is missing is a flying troop that's resistant to elemental attacks. So the Fairy Dragon is the perfect mini to really kind of fill that role given its history in Warcraft 3, Heroes of the Storm, and of course World of Warcraft. Then on your right, we see Ragnaros himself. Unlike other minis described earlier here, Ragnaros is not going to be part of the normal seasonal content. Instead, Ragnaros is going to be tied to the release of the Molten Core raid.
Ooh.
And not surprisingly, the reward for defeating Ragnaros will be Ragnaros.
Oh, that is so
Now,
cool.
We do expect that Ragnaros is going to be an extremely unique leader that has some very unique mechanics, one of which involves his summoning via a Majordomo Executus mini.
This is cool.
And of course, that'll happen none too soon. Now, as it happens, the topic of Ragnaros leads us to our path towards raids and those supporting features. So, from the game's original initial conception, we've really viewed Warcraft Rumble as a co-op game. One that would be really fun to play on your own, but also even more fun to play in a party with a friend.
No.
So to finally realize that dream, we're planning to create the ability to party with a guildmate and do some end game content and engage in co-op battles via the raid feature that I'll get into a little bit more.
Please don't force it.
But in addition, the development of parties and raids really kind of opens up the potential for additional modes of co-op play in the future.
No.
Like questing, Arclight surges, and of course.
No.
So why play?
Allow solo players to still do it, please.
Your losses when you could rightfully point your finger at your teammate. Now, naturally, with the reveal of Ragnaros and co-op raids, it makes sense to spend a little time talking about how raids will actually work. So, as I describe the raid system and how it's going to work, you might notice that there's a UI looping in the background and shows off a little bit of how this functionality looks and works in practice. For starters, raids will require the players party with one of your guild mates in order to take on the raid. And, you know, if it takes 3 or maybe even 5 gigantic monitors to get the full effect of a 40-person raid in World of Warcraft, then, you know, partying with one mighty guildie is the pocket-sized equivalent. As you enter the raid UI, you might notice that the Molten Core will be split up into 3 wings and then a final boss encounter. Each wing is going to host 2 of the raid's bosses, and each one of those comes with a unique reward. We currently expect the first wing of the Molten Core to begin at level 26, the second wing at level 27, and so on. Then raids will be available for a limited time each season. As more raids are introduced, then they're going to come back into cycle in a similar way that the dungeons work right now. However, during any given raid cycle, you're going to want to consider what leaders to bring to which raid encounter. Not only do you want to pair an effective leader against a particular encounter that you're facing, but in the long run, you're also going to want to think about which leader matches up best against the different encounters. And this is because once a leader defeats a raid boss successfully, it's going to get locked to that map for that raid cycle. So early on in your Molten Core adventures, this won't be much of a hurdle because you're probably just going to be using your best army to kind of learn the encounters and learn to beat the early encounters. And then later on during...
Thank you very much for following, Pyro.
To the point where you can take them all down.
Much appreciated.
You start to more specifically plan which leader you want to use versus which boss.
Please,
so,
man.
With the raid system described in a little bit of detail, let's jump in.
Please do not force guild for content in this. I don't want to join a guild. I really, really don't. It's a mobile game. I love playing mobile games by myself. I don't want to play a mobile game with other people. I really could care less about other people. Like, seriously. I don't want to be forced to join a guild to be able to do content in this game.
The first swing, the Molten Core. Alright, so before we get into the details of these 2 specific bosses, some of the aspects of raids that you're going to find that are common between all the different maps are that some lanes are actually shared between you and your teammate.
It's going to be a while until this gets released, so...
One lane that has deploy zones only for you and one for your teammate. So there's some crossover in some areas, but in other areas it's really up to you to handle what's happening in that lane. In addition, all gold income is shared by both players, or actually given to both players. So as you mine,
don't want both, man. Say one.
Etc. You're both going to reap the rewards, reap the benefits. There's no need to race your guildmate to the nearest treasure chest or gold node or anything like that. You can do whatever benefits the team the most. So now onto the specific maps themselves. The Loose Front encounter features 2 Dominator Lieutenants. It's those big flame wakers that you see on that left map there.
Kobe.
Dominator Lieutenants mind control the first enemy unit that enters their massive area of control. So be careful about what minis you send toward them. One of the main challenges here is to figure out how to bring the Dominators down effectively. The moment the mini that they've taken control of is killed, then another one is immediately dominated. So, for example, one might think that sending an entire coop of chickens at the Dominator to take it while a sneaky Worgen, stabs the Dominator from the back is a clever strategy, but that all falls apart the moment the first chicken is dominated, is immediately murdered by all of its angry chicken brethren, causing the Dominator to then turn around and take over that Worgen that you thought was going to be doing a great job doing stabby in the back of the Dominator.
You ain't stabby nothing.
You're going to have to consider sacrificing a mini that has a little bit of survivability to a Dominator so it doesn't go down too quickly. So maybe Footmen, perhaps, for example. Also, keep in mind that while these Dominators don't respawn quickly, there are new ones that are summoned at various points in the battle. So that brings us to Magmadar. Now, Magmadar, the deadliest of dogs, for him, you're going to have to deal with a trio of ancient core hounds before you can actually do much to Magmadar himself. You can expect to have to bring down the ancient core hounds within a short time of each other, fittingly enough, because they resurrect each other when one falls in true core hound fashion. So make sure you bring a mighty death ball on your way to Magmadar. Otherwise, the ancient core hounds are just going to keep respawning before you get much done.
I remember that mechanic.
It's definitely not the best plan to try to chip away at Magmadar while trickling in some sort of half-hearted death ball. We demand a passionate death ball here. Only that will do. So that brings us to wing number 2. Now, on wing number 2, Gehenna and Shazra and the Gar encounter reside. The Gehenna and Shazra map has the interesting twist that Shazra actually counterspells any spells that are cast by either player. Now, Shazra, which is the boss closer to the front in blue in the screenshot above there, it can be killed before Gehenna in order to remove that restriction. So, you know, don't bring decks or armies that have too many spells that might clog up your hand until Shazra is actually down. Or you can attempt the map without any spells at all. Choice is yours. All right, as for Gar, be prepared to bring armies that feature a lot of elemental killing ability. The streams of elementals are summoned anytime a tower is destroyed by Gar. And you might notice on his map that there are a lot of towers. There are 6 towers on that map. So you're definitely going to want to hold off on assaulting a tower until you're sure you can keep control of it. Otherwise, things are going to quickly snowball out of control, as any loss of a tower is going to create yet another wave of earth elementals. So in the event that you accidentally take a tower, it can be very valuable to be able to quickly deploy some unbound units to defend it, regardless of where that tower is on the map. So keep that in mind. Now, the third wing of the Molten Core are where Baron Geddon and Golemag are. Now, Baron Geddon's fiery lair of lava strongly encourages players to bring armies that are heavily stacked with flying minis. After all, the floor is lava. Danger, danger. And as for Golemag, beware the incineration runes around every tower. These runes are really kind of significantly alter the strategies for taking a tower. It's not just as simple as throwing any old tank at them to get the job done.
That's a cool map.
You're really going to need to more carefully plan which combinations of minis you bring to these towers. Otherwise, you're going to watch your push really kind of melt back down into the gold dust they came from. And of course, you know, what would Molten Core be without its iconic final boss, Ragnaros? Now, after you defeat the first 3 wings, then Ragnaros unlocks. And Ragnaros is a 4-phase encounter that will test us all. Phase 1 occurs when Ragnaros is submerged, and that includes the summoning of Ragnaros by Majordomo Executus. In Phase 2, we're going to face off against Ragnaros's core abilities of Blast Wave, Meteor, and then also Lava Wave. In Phase 3, Ragnaros submerges for a time and spawns many Sons of Flame. Let me know if you've ever seen that before. And then finally in Phase 4, Ragnaros returns and gains some additional abilities in the form of Immolation Aura. And all this combines to create an encounter that is very similar in difficulty and complexity to Onyxia herself, maybe even more so, but co-op. And so, you know, it's going to bring an entirely new dimension to kind of what it feels like to beat one of these really complex encounters, and a lot of extra fun. So now that we've had a chance to cover the raid system and the maps that are involved, I'm guessing a lot of you want to know, you know, what rewards there are going to be had to be earned in the Molten Core.
I might have to join a
let's cover
guild.
some of that. Now, each wing features powerful and in most cases unique rewards. For example, for clearing the first wing, you'll unlock a boost slot for an army of your choice. The boost slot allows any mini that's placed into that slot to be boosted to a base level of 20, which is the maximum level obtainable via XP. And this gives you massive army flexibility. You know, if you want to try out a mini you don't normally use, no problem. If you just bought a new mini from the grid and you haven't leveled it up yet, no problem. Just, you know, slot them into that slot and have fun. Gives you massive amount of flexibility for really kind of playing around with different army compositions. Also, for clearing the second wing, you'll unlock a legendary tome and a legendary core. You know, the raids in the PvP ladder are really the way to earn legendary cores that you'll need in order to finally upgrade a mini to its highest rarity. In addition, for every 2 raid bosses that you bring down, you're going to earn some Valor, and you can use that Valor to upgrade one of your gold army slots that you earn via the dungeons up to a platinum slot. And then, of course, for the final reward, as I already mentioned, you're going to be able to unlock the Ragnaros leader and earn additional star points for defeating Ragnaros, and increase his rarity up from, you know, uncommon to rare, eventually epic, legendary, etc. So prepare some subtle but effective ways to tell your favorite guildmate to stop standing in the fire. so you can get more cores from the molten core. All right, so with raids covered, let's move on and talk about some of the new dungeon and zone content that's coming on.
That's the only negative so far is they're forcing co-op.
We have some new challenges in store for you as we introduce one of WoW's classic, WoW Classic's most iconic dungeons, Skullomance. Skullomance features 3 of the most memorable bosses from that dungeon. We have Jandis Barov, Rattlegore, and of course Darkmaster Gandling. As you build an army that's designed to take these encounters on, you're going to want to prepare
Room
for
on the left
Jandis
is really
and
cool.
her ability to clone herself. Rattlegore's endless waves of graveyard spawns, and Darkmaster Gandling's propensity to teleport your army into rooms full of enemies. Gandling's rooms feature different groups of enemies that you're going to want to strategize around and make sure you're prepared to handle for any of the minis that get sent into those rooms. You can want to, get the wrong mini trapped in the wrong place. It'd feel a little bit too much like what happened a lot to our guild in Classic WoW. So keep your eyes open for the introduction of Skullomance and one of these content updates that's coming in the coming months. Now, as we continue to add new content for dungeons, we also wouldn't want to forget about the final Kalimdor zone. Moonglade is going to come into the game as the final zone of the campaign, at least for now. It'll come after Blackrock Mountain. And we have 5 maps that are in progress for the zone, with both normal and heroic versions, of course. The bosses that we're featuring for the zone are Brightwing, Fairy Dragon, a pair of Druids, one of the Claw and one of the Talon. We've got Brumaron and Ysera, and also Cenarius. And so the normal version of Moonglade is actually going to range from level 16 to 17, and that's going to put the heroic version starting at level 26 and ranging up to 27. So with a lot of the new PvE content covered, let's actually move on to our next topic, which is PvP. Now, we've got a handful of updates and improvements that are in store for PvP that we'd like to cover today. For starters, we're updating the seasonal rotation system to actually randomize which map gets selected on a per map, per battle basis, rather than featuring the same map for an entire season. In addition, we're adding a new modifier category to replace the current map category that signifies which map lasts for the entire season, and that's going to be in the form of the Siege category. The Siege category features a few new modifiers that are cycled on a bi-weekly basis, and those modifiers are very much designed to kind of alter what the kind of meta feel is of these mechanics. Now, one of them, this one that's currently named Crumbling Towers, that modifier causes captured towers to turn into meeting stones for the rest of the match, whereas the collateral damage modifier actually causes damage to the opponent's main base anytime one of the towers is destroyed. Now, both of these modifiers are designed to really kind of alter some of your strategic choices about, what armies make a lot of sense for that particular section of the season, and also kind of alter some of the pacing of the PvP battle and kind of creates a very different arc and flow of the battle than what you would otherwise see for that kind of couple of weeks. Now, for instance, the collateral damage modifier really helps emphasize map control, and it diminishes strategies that are based around focusing attacks toward an enemy's base exclusively. Those of you who did a lot of that in beta and soft launch, you know who you are. In addition, changes to the cycling of maps and introduction of new modifiers. We're also in the process of adding global leaderboards. So, that's to support the PvP community and their never-ending quest to know who the best of the best are. Now, along with these updates to the PvP system, we actually have a feature in store that a lot of players have been asking for a long time now. A staple of the RTS genre for decades now on PC and more recently on mobile has been the ability to view and share replays. Fortunately, this is one that we also have and expect to support in Warcraft Rumble. So this is something that has been actively worked on so far. Not only do replays help players share strategies with each other, given that these replays can be easily shared with others, but they also help players analyze their own play and better understand improvements that they can make. So we're looking forward to being able to add these features to the game over the course of our upcoming feature updates, and those will really kind of roll out over the course of the next year or so. So having discussed some of the new content and the features that are coming to the game, it's time to kind of circle back to some of the cosmetic collectibles that we've been working on. Each 6-week season actually will feature the ability to collect new cosmetic items via the war chest and also via the PvP ladder. In our current rotation, every other season is going to feature a tower skin as one of the war chest cosmetics. With the, the current upcoming season is actually the Judgment Tower set, so you'll see that in season 2. And then you'll also see some additional seasons.
The question is, will we be able to get them after the season?
Every other season that happens after that, season 4, etc. Now, as one might expect, we're also going to want to see some of the classic Warcraft tower architecture from the Horde, the Undead, and other races, and we'll be seeing those also soon enough. Then, to go along with the tower skins, we also have a ton of new emotes on the pipeline. In our current plans, the new emotes will be added to the PvP ladder each season, and every other season there's also going to be an additional emote in the war chest. Now, maybe not surprisingly, the overriding focus for emotes is actually to just create emotes that feel really fun and expressive of the characters that are in question. In the middle screen behind me, you can see some of the new emotes that we're planning to introduce soon, whether it's, the Mecha Kobold, Garrick Padfoot flexing his favorite tattoo of himself, Murloc's Mighty War Gargle, Safe Pilot meme, Board Nixia, Steaming Pile of Reek. You can expect a emote for every occasion. Now, that actually brings us to our final type of cosmetic, which is our first foray into skins for characters within the game. And we're going to be starting off with the Lowly Kobold, since that's a mini that everybody has right from the start of the game's earliest moments. And to do that, we're guessing that a lot of players would enjoy having the ability to theme their kobold along the lines of the primary families of the game. And so we'll be making the family-themed kobolds available for collection soon. And of course, as we continue our additions of new content, we're also going to be exploring ideas like leader skins. But that's a story for another day, so stay tuned for that. So that really kind of concludes our look into Warcraft Rumble, its history, and what's coming on the near horizon. We honestly couldn't be more excited for everyone to get their hands on the game, and we'd especially like to thank everybody here for joining us here today. If you haven't had a chance to check out the Warcraft Rumble area yet, it's over there in the Warcraft section of the convention. Have yourselves a great time with the game itself, photo ops, and of course community events. And more than anything else, I'd like to thank you again and just say good luck with all your rumbling. So thank you all.
Cool. Pretty cool. Looking forward to it. I mean, we're going to play some right now, so I'm looking forward to getting in to Warcraft Rumble. So yeah, let's go ahead. Let me go ahead and set that up, and I'll catch you guys in a bit.